Soft governance as a way of complexity management.
According to sociologist and management cyberneticist Helmut Willke, the first task of management is related to context management. Context management requires the consideration of interrelationships of organizational units and the relevant environments of the organizations. This is in line with the intrinsic logic of operative closeness, Maturana and Varela, 1984, according to which an understanding, description and management of organizations requires insight into the internal dynamics and the consideration of organizational contexts. These are defined, for example, by the societal, technological, economic, ecological, and political, legal, steep, environment. Willke, 1998, p. 45. Sociologist Dirk Becker, 2003, describes the necessity of cooperation as the revolution of organization. This revolution transforms a recurring concept of the 19th century, those who work, produce, into a new one, those who work, communicate. According to Dirk Becker, managers have to identify changes in the environment with the aim of transforming the corporate vision, the roles, strategies, procedures and production of the organization in order to respond to these new challenges. The second task of management is to establish internal transformation processes to enable organizations to utilize their present capabilities to implement necessary changes into their everyday routines. These changes should allow the organizations to achieve their final visions. The third task of management is to proactively involve itself in trans-organizational cooperative networks in order to shape the future by framing the environmental context on ecological, economic and social levels. To successfully frame environmental contexts, managers have to involve themselves in trans-organizational policy initiatives on both a national and international level. Thus, organizational success directly depends on effective communication inside and outside of organizations. J. Clyde Mitchell, 1969, points out that interdependent dynamics exist between 1. Consciously implemented network substructures, 2. Network activities, and the 3. Evolutionary dynamics of internal and external networks. Consciously implemented substructures, see Figure 20.1, such as coordinator and steering group, allow the inner network to incorporate strategic goals and act as interventions for organizational systems. Substructures are aimed at steering, learning, change and inventing. While activities initiated by substructures convert targets into results, unintended outcomes emerge within and beyond the network substructures. Interdependent dynamics, thus, generate outcomes that go far beyond consciously intended goals. That is to say, networks as tools for soft governance cannot be copied from one context to another or serve as best practice examples. Instead, Figure 20.1. The Swarovski-Ino architecture of tasks, roles, and annual planning. They are a framework useful for how to think, not what to think, and need to be tailored to the specific underlying organizational context. As such, the design and structure of any network ought to be customized to the capabilities and needs of the entire organization. Furthermore, Sito and Wendler, 1999, outline that communication patterns of networks differ from typical routines of hierarchical organizations. 1. They decrease opportunistic behavior in favor of increasing mutual economic and social relationships with long-term cooperation. 2. They demand negotiations between network partners while keeping a balance of individual interests and network benefit. 3. They foster moving from competing relationships to cooperative relationships, which is an investment in trust-based communication. 4. They build on long-term partnerships aligned by a common vision and intrinsic values of all network partners involved. 5. They establish an openness for the unusual and the new. 6. They allow for the building of suitable network structures, roles and processes according to specific network targets and activities. The use of generalized empirical values and experiences, in face-to-face relationships, make networks a tool for governing complex social systems. As mentioned above, the success of organizations depends on a fruitful cooperation with internal and external stakeholders and, thus, communication enables individuals and organizations to create something which cannot be created individually. The purpose and motivation for cooperation stem from an increase in productivity, which arises from dealing with opportunities and crises through the pooling of complementary interests and resources. Grossman, Lobnig, and Scala, 2007.